In this lesson, we're going to learn how to create our motion vector layer so that we can do a 2D motion blur in our compositing application. So here we are in Maya, and I've just opened up 11_end. So we have our color mat created, so let's just grab our signed group again. Let's create a new layer, and let's call this motion vector. And of course, let's add our objects. So that'll add in the sign group. Now we also need to add in the ground geometry as well. So let's jump back to our master layer here. And let's select our two pieces of ground geometry. Because remember, we want to make sure to motion blur our shadows as well as our sign. So we'll need to go to our motion vector and add those as well. So to set up our motion vector pass, we just need to jump into our render settings. And let's jump to our features and turn off the final gather to begin with. And let's create a layer override for that, turn it off. So to get this out of Maya, all we need to do is go to our passes and add a new pass, a 2D motion vector pass. So let's create this and close it. And it's going to name it MV2D Toxic. I'm just going to rename this motion vector so I know exactly what it is. And let's assign this to that layer. Okay, so we have it all assigned up, and if we hit render right now, we would see, or if we hit batch render, we would try to get this file out. But it's not going to be as high a quality as we can get, because right now you can see that my motion vector here, let me just refresh my window here. The motion vector pass is using a 32-bit float buffer type. What that means is it's gathering a lot more data than is usually stored in an image. So something like a JPEG or even a target image can only store an 8-bit frame, while this render pass is outputting 32-bit floating point. So what we need to do is we need to create a few layer overrides to utilize all of this data. First one, we'll need to change is inside of our options here. Actually, it's in the quality settings. And we need to scroll to the bottom until we get to the frame buffer. So let's dial this down. And now you can see that our data type here is set to RGB 4 times 8 bits, but we need 32-bit float. So all we need to do is, again, create another layer override, and let's change this to normal float 3 times 32-bit. Okay, once that's done, we need to change our render format from a normal image format to something that can hold all this HD data, or you probably heard it, some people refer to 32-bit float as high dynamic range, and so we need to use an image format that can hold all of that data. So again, let's create a layer override, and this time we'll be using an OpenEXR file, because the OpenEXR file format is built to handle this type of data. So now that we have everything set up and we have our frame buffer data type set to 32-bit float, we can now render our motion vector pass. So that was our setting up our motion vector layer. Again, it's pretty simple. Just add all of our objects because we want all the data we can get. Change our frame buffer under quality using an override to normal float 3 times 32 bits, and change our image format to something that can hold all 32 bits like an OpenEXR. So in the next lesson, we'll come in and finish off all of our render settings and bump up the quality and actually render this scene out.